Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1053, and today's date is August 19th, 2016, and the title of the episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Now, before we get started, I just want to make a couple announcements. This will be the only report today. It is a news brief. Also, tomorrow, Saturday morning, I'll be uploading an interview with V, the Guerrilla Economist. And if you are on the X22 Report email alert system, you will receive an email. Otherwise, you can go to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. You'll see the interview there. Or you can come over to the x22report.com site or newssentinel.com. Both sites, just scroll down, look over the right-hand side. You'll see the interview there. I will have this interview up in the morning on Saturday. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we realize as this economy continually deteriorates, the banks, the central banks, they're going to have to do whatever they possibly can to get the money, the currency from the people. And a couple days ago, we reported that Hyphen Bank in Germany was going to be charging their depositors 0.4% to keep their money in the banks, anyone that had 100,000 euros or more. Well, it looks like more banks are joining in on this. And we know what happens here. They always start out with the very wealthy, or they say it's going to be those people who have stock or anything else in the bank, or they always start from the upper level, and then they trickle it down very slowly. And we can see that this is already happening, where in the beginning they said this wasn't even going to hit depositors. And now we see that, yes, it is. So we see two large banks. One of them is going to be the Bank of Ireland. It's set to become the first domestic financial institution to pass negative rates to customers for placing their money on deposit. We're also seeing that RBS is going to be doing the same exact thing. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing this spread, because eventually what's going to happen is these banks are going to have to go in and actually take the money from the people, and that is called a bail-in, because as we know, these banks are completely insolvent, and when the system starts to collapse and everything starts to fall apart, these banks, these central banks, what they're going to do, they're going to implement the bail-in documentation, and they will go in and take the people's money. But we can see investors are already worried about what is happening, and there's a lot of funds flowing out of Europe. They're moving into emerging markets. You know, the BRIC system. And we can see right now that in the last 4 weeks, we have seen the largest outflows from Europe into the emerging markets. And it is huge. So investors in Europe, they are leaving. We see banks now are going after people's funds. And this is going to spread all over the place. Now, we see out in the Middle East, there's going to be another meeting between Lavrov, Kerry, and the UN Syria envoy on August 26th and 27th. Supposedly, they're all going to meet and sit down and talk about the situation in Syria. Right now, Iran is saying that the U.S., their strategic agenda in the Middle East, well, it's not working out. And we know it's not working out because we can see what is happening there. Turkey, for instance, they are siding with Iran. They're siding with Russia. The U.S. is taking their nukes out of Turkey. Now, we can see that the U.S. is removing those nukes, but don't worry. The U.S. has nuclear subs in this vicinity, and they have the ability to fire the nukes from the subs instead of having the nukes in Turkey. But they're taking them and they're removing them and putting them into Romania. We see right now the U.S. and the corporate media, they are pushing this Aleppo poster child. And they're trying to use this to show the world that Assad is a terrible person. Look what is happening with Syria bombing the area. But we have to remember, the U.S., the coalition forces, the terrorists, what they have done to the children, to the civilians, not just in Syria, but in Libya, in Afghanistan, in Lebanon, in Yemen. The number of innocent people that are killed and families destroyed is staggering. But of course, what they're doing is they're picking one child who doesn't even look like he's hurt. Maybe he got a little hurt, but he'll survive. But they're going to use it as the poster child to try to demonize Assad once again. Now, they've done this all throughout this time period. And each time, it doesn't gain any traction. Now, the U.S. is getting very, very worried because we can see that the U.S., they are scrambling their fighter jets to protect their special operation forces in the northeastern area, because we can see Syria, they have been bombing in this area. And of course, the United States came out and said, you're bombing the Kurds, you're bombing the moderate rebels. And you have to remember, the U.S. refuses to show Russia, to show Syria, who are the terrorists and who are the moderate rebels. The reason why they don't want to show them is because they want to keep them intertwined. This way they can use this later on as a way of saying, look, you're hitting the Kurds, you're hitting the moderate rebels, and you're hitting our forces. And it looks like this is where we are headed. Now, Russia has already come out and saying we weren't part of this bombing run. Syria is out there saying, listen, we're hitting terrorists. And if your moderate rebels are intertwined, well, there's nothing we can do about it because you have never produced a list of who's moderate, who is terrorists. But we could see the U.S. is using this. So now the U.S. is scrambling jets, and the U.S. is saying, we're going to do whatever we need to do to protect the coalition forces, which tells you right there and then that we need to start worrying, because we can see what they're building up to, because they have the propaganda with this boy. Now we have jets scrambling, and things are starting to heat up at this point. And why are they heating up? Because we can see at this time, the U.S., their backs are against the wall. They have no alternative. Now, out in Ukraine, we understand that they're trying to push war in this area. They're continually saying that Russia is building up forces. And what Russia is doing right now, which was planned for quite a while, they're having a drill in Crimea. Crimea is part of Russia. And the troops are inside of Crimea having a drill. So every time, if you really think about it, every time NATO has a drill on the border of Russia, they're getting ready to attack. We should assume that, because that's what they're trying to make us believe in Ukraine, that Russia is going to attack. But Russia is not going to attack. They're showing Ukraine, listen, don't make a move here. And when the United States does it on the border of Russia, they're trying to provoke Russia, saying, we are here. Make your move. But Russia never does. We see China, they are having drills in the South China Sea. Now, we see all of this happening all at once. And we can see at this time that everything is rapidly falling apart. It's continually falling apart. And as we track this day by day by day, we see that everything, it's not improving. It's actually getting worse. And time is running out for the U.S. government, the central bankers. And they realize this. And this is why they're trying to ramp things up at this point. Because as we approach the fall, we understand that the economy is collapsing. The elections are upon us. The U.S., their strategic positioning in the Middle East is no more. The Islamic State, their proxy army, is being defeated in Iraq, being defeated in Syria. China has now joined Syria and backing Assad. And this is a major problem for the United States. The United States failed with the coup in Turkey, failed with the terrorist attack in Crimea, failed with the offensive in Aleppo. Russia is calling the United States out on resupplying the terrorists, calling them out in supporting the terrorists, And the United States is not looking that great right now. And I'm talking about the government. Obama was caught in a lie, another one. And we can see that all these banks now, they're going into negative interest rates and taking the people's money. We can see that retail sales are declining, manufacturing is declining, GDP declining, housing bubble popping. This is all happening at once. And this is what we've been looking at. Yes, it's great to look back and see the overall picture saying, yes, I understand now, this is why everything collapsed, and we can see the picture very clearly. But while it's happening right in front of your face, this is what people can't see. And this is why we're doing this every single day. So people can see exactly what's happening. So none of this is a surprise. Where the government comes out and says, oh, look, it just happened because of this, or this country did it to us. No, this was happening all along. We are collapsing. In many areas, it's already collapsed. Europe is a complete mess. And when they eventually announce it, they're going to take the blame and move it to another area, and they're going to use this to convince the people this is why it happened. But we know this is not why it happened, because we've been following it, tracking it. We have proof that whatever they say is going to be a lie. And this is why we're doing this every single day, to track, follow, to show, to prepare for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.